an independent policy think tank with the aim to promote liberty and free market ideals through public policy and advocacy for a free and prosperous society in Ghana. Last year, Yafo Institute introduced the Free SHS Dialogue series, and before that, they conducted a research in counting the costs. With this research, it examined the various challenges that came as a result of the Free SHS policy, affecting teachers, students, and parents all together. And with this research, came out, brought some ongoing challenges, highlighted some outcomes, which has sparked widespread debate all over the country. We are talking about today since 8 years ago, even now. And during our research dialogue series last year, after the research has examined these challenges, during the dialogue, brought some reforms, suggested some various reforms, which we are encouraged, we are happy that some of the reforms have been put in place in some of the governmental intervention. And today, we are here to discuss how these reforms have really been implemented and how we can continue to harness the outcome of our research in order to improve the FSHS policy today and the future tomorrow. So this brings us to today's agenda. I'm hereby honored to introduce our distinguished speakers. Yeah. So our first speaker is in the person of Mr. Donatus Do. Yeah, he is the head of the Center for Health, Education, and Poverty Reduction at the Yafo Institute. He's also a doctoral student in education and social policy at the University of Delaware. I don't know if I get the name right. Yeah, University of Delaware. Yeah, please, Mr. Donatus, kindly turn on your camera. Let the participants and the viewers see you. Yeah. It seems like okay. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is in the person of Maxwell Wama Amofa. Yeah, he is a dedicated advocate for human rights, transitional justice, and sustainable development in Africa. Currently serves as the executive director for the International Partnership for African Development, that's IPAD Africa. He's also a research officer at the Center President of African Student Union at the European University Viadrina in Germany. Yeah, please. Can you turn on your camera for your audience to see you?
I think the camera is on already. Can you see me? I think it's already on.
Already on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Final. Yes. He's a researcher and a free market policy analyst. And he's also a blockchain enthusiast and also for DeFi and blockchain. Okay. I think his camera is also on. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also glad to be here.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Moving on. That's actually for today. Yes. and it's in various aspects. So we are going to delve into policy impact, implementation of previous reform proposals. We are going to delve into the double track system, and then infrastructure, resources, private sector engagement, governance, and decentralization. Okay, so moving on. Our first question. So the first question will be addressed to all the speakers, but each speaker will give their answer one after the other. Okay. Please, I hope you are okay with that. Yeah. Okay, so given that many families still experience financial strain, to what extent has the free SHS policy reduced household poverty since its introduction? So I think our first speaker, Mr. Donatus, yeah, please you can give your point of view.
Yeah, I think good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone. And I'm glad to contribute to this dialogue on free education policy in Ghana and how to harness it for like a sustainable future needs development. I would say that the policy on a whole, looking at its intent of promoting access and let's say inclusion, and more broadly educational attainment, it has been, should I say, positive, and a lot of studies have kind of confirmed that it has improved access for boys and girls, and these outcomes are also same for, let's say, those from rural areas and then those from urban areas. So on that score, we would say the policy has been effective in addressing some of the gaps that it intended to address, which was like access and then attainment. And then on your question of, is it the household costs that kind of still lingers even after the implementation of the policy? I would still say that there is still much to be done, even though we've seen a lot of, should I say, investment. The free education have kind of taken a large percentage of the education budget. It has diverted a lot of resources from, let's say, like even tertiary education investment, and also for basic education, it has taken a lot of resources from government funding. So in terms of the resources, it has kind of increased more resources for food, some of the textbooks, and then also some learning materials. So, and then also, I think I read that they kind of have a lot of, let's say, non-education costs like payment of teachers and other staff costs. So it has taken a lot of budget appropriation. But then in terms of its coverage of the household support, we still have a lot of gaps. And I think these gaps have kind of limited the positive outcomes that we might expect. And I could give an example of parents still having to bear the cost of, and reading the research from Yafo Institute on the unintended consequences of the policy, we could see that parents still have to take care of their kids in terms of classroom, let's say extra classes. So those extra classes put enormous burden on families. So if you think of the policy as a whole, it has improved access, but then at the family level, parents who want to improve the outcomes of their children still need to pay extra fees. And these are unintended, and also we don't see it as a macro level factor, but then at the micro level, it doesn't really improve a lot of outcomes for families because they still have to invest their family resources in providing these resources to improve their children's outcome. And aside the resources that these families provide, they also have to like support the kids with all the things that maybe we are expecting the policy to provide. So maybe let's say the school feeding is not at its ultimate best. So you see parents having to either foot the bills of their kids or their children or their wards, and these costs are kind of negatively impacting the families. And although they are unintended, we might have to quantify their impacts, because if maybe let's say a family is below the poverty level, and then the policy is intended to address their uh, resource gap, and then now they have to bear the burden of providing more resources for their children, even though the policy is in existence, then we might have to relook at the policy and look at how best it can help address this unintended cost of uh, like burdening families. So I think this is my preliminary thoughts on families still having to bear some burdens of the cost, and it negatively impacts their abilities in like supporting their kids, because if you look at the urban rural divide also, it's disproportionately affects rural folks, because maybe they don't have a lot of resources, and then now they have to kind of put in those resources back into supporting their children, even though we have the free education policy. So this is like an unintended cost we still have to grapple with, and I think my colleagues will add to those contributions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Donatus. Mr. Maxwell Wama Amofa, yeah, would like to also hear your preliminary thoughts on this question.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not so well and have been engaged in a series of meetings today in different cities. First of all, is on the issue of free SHS policy. Generally, let's admit the fact that it's a good policy for any country. In most countries I've been to, I've realized that this is quite a common thing especially among European countries, that basic education should be free till university level, and countries like Germany and Norway, where universities are even free. Um, but on your question on issue of poverty reduction or household poverty, you see, we can realize that that was the intended reason for the whole policy, that majority of the kids who graduate from junior high schools and cannot go to the senior high school because of financial reasons will have the chance to actually go to these senior high schools. So the government decided to take out a lot of the cost. So with tuition costs, with PTA dues, and I remember when it was first introduced, the government became very aggressive towards certain schools that were taking even small amount of money from students, because they wanted everybody to have, access to this education. Of course, it could be for political reasons, but the goal was um, also to give access to people from, low financial backgrounds to have access to high schools. Yeah. So, to a large extent, it's actually provided that room for people from not so well-to-do background to also have access to education. So parents wouldn't have to spend so much. If you are like some of us who are from quite not a very well-to-do family, where when we had to go to school, we sometimes had to miss dining because we couldn't afford the tuition fees at the time. In primary college, um, we were not given a chance to go to a dining hall because we had not paid our tuition fees. But this is not the case this time around, that, okay, you go to school, the government has already paid for this, and you have the chance to even access the dining hall. Your parents don't have to struggle so much to pay for that. Right. Yeah, but um, like my colleague Donatus said, it has certain unintended cost, because when I look at how the system is currently regulated, it means that most of the kids now need extra tuition to actually catch up with um, the syllables that they need for their final examinations. And my younger brother is also in high school, and we spend a lot of money simply for him to get extra tuition just to be able to catch up. So now we are spending more, buying more books, paying more teachers, simply for him to catch up. So yes, there are other unintended costs, but I think that for the basic level, for people who are from, excuse my language, but for families, it is not a burden. It is not a burden. The most important thing is they have an education. Remember, high school qualification is a basic requirement for most jobs in Ghana, even for the security services. So for them, it is a positive development. It is not a burden as we might have seen it. So if you look at the cost benefit analysis, to them, they will say that it's a huge benefit to them and not really a cost in terms of investment. you know. But maybe from some of us who may want extra tuition, want our wards to get to a very high level, we want them to get some high grades. Yes, we feel that it comes with extra cost, you know. Yes. So I think that in terms of household poverty, we should look at it from more of the cost benefit analysis that it benefit people, because poverty itself is subjective. you know it depends on the cost that your cost you are incurring in something. So if a family believes that they are really benefiting from this, they're able to take their ward to the school and get what they need, get that basic education that they need to progress with their career, then I think that it has somehow, to a large extent, achieved its aim of getting people to enroll in these schools. Yes, but on the other hand, for people from middle income family or from rich families, it might come with certain costs that they may see as probably worsening their case, or maybe making them poorer, if that's the right word to use, than even if they were paying the tuition, because they might see the tuition as maybe it was something very small, but they were achieving more. Yeah, so I think that it simply depends on the cost benefit analysis um, that we can do depending on the situation of that particular family.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amopa. Mr. Nathaniel Jamla, yes, please your preliminary thoughts on this question. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much, Hilary, and thank you to the audience that have also taken time to join us. I welcome you all. The conversation we are having is a very important one. And I must, before I even make my point, let me say that I wasn't supposed to be here. I'm stepping in for my colleague Justine because he has had some family engagement. So that's why, even though you don't see me on the flyer, I'm part of the speakers on the event. So I'm stepping in. Now, the FSHS, as we all know, is something that gained popularity even from 2008 downwards to the time the president was able to garner the needed mandate to implement it in 2017. The intention behind the policy is great. And as Maxwell has mentioned, that throughout the world, basic education is free and people are able to access it. So that is very fantastic. However, we are looking at this in light with how the policy was implemented and then the kind of consequences that it has come up with. And now we have a new government that is also embarking on reforms. And even in the build up to the 2024 election, you realize that people bought the policy of reforming FSHS. Others were saying if they are going to reform it, then it means they are going to cancel it. But here we are, the policy is still in action. We are also on this conversation going to talk about the how we are going to harness some of these reforms. And as for us as Yafo Institute, we made mention of this, and we look at it keenly from the unintended consequences, because like I always say, policies are not judged by the intention. If you have a good heart, that's fine. But then when you bring out the policy, we are looking at how its impact is affecting individuals. Now, once we roll out free SHS, definitely different families are going to get access to basic school, so the number is going to increase. So what are going to be the strategic plans to improve infrastructure in these schools? Because the learning will not go on in a vacuum. You need classrooms. Now, all these things doesn't come into play. Now we realize that, oh, the numbers are huge. Then we say, okay, now let's run reactive policies, including double track system. It's okay, double track system. Okay, what about feeding? What about this? So that is what has brought us to this point. And so, like, I agree that if we are looking at building the educational capacity of our citizens, we make sure that we think through it holistically and implement it in such a way that some of these reactive things won't come in the first place. Now, let me zoom into the main question. How has it impacted household poverty? Now, you realize that one of the core objectives of FSHS policy is to relieve the parents of financial burden when it comes to schooling or educating their wards. That's one of the active burden objectives. And even the president is even on record to, I think, to say that we have given money to people because since they are not paying their fees, there's an analogy that they have money in their pocket. We have such analogy. So if that is that, because of some of the consequences that came in, some are unintended because, for instance, the double track system, for instance, it wasn't foreseen. It's something that came in as a reaction to the huge numbers. Now, the double track comes in. There is also what we call huge numbers of students that were staying at home. And so you find parents not even engaging in extra classes in school, but they'll be doing extra classes at home for their hours. Now, I also have, there's one particular man that shared a story and was like, I have a lot of kids. I want them to go to school so that I can work. But here you are, if this one go on a green track, another one is at home. And so he's not getting the kind of freedom that they are supposed to get of their kids, so that they know that, okay, nobody is home, I'm concentrating, I'm not coming home now, I'm making money, I'm grinding in the market, and I'm working hard. But this is the situation that they find themselves. So in a way, overall, I would say it impacted household poverty in a way. If people are going to pay monies for extra classes, extra feeding, extra, because at the point some was reported that the food was not enough for the student. So if you're going to spend extra money for that, extra money for extra classes, and they are students that if you are more rich or let's say affluent, you do extra classes even in the school, and you do extra classes when the child come home. So the extra classes, there are even levels to the extra classes. So all these things come to impact the income of the household. So let me end here. And as the conversation continues, we'll get to make other submissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, okay. What immediate policy adjustments can ensure that the economic relief promised to parents can become a reality? Like, how can this poverty be reduced despite its existence? But yes. Mr. Donatus, please, can you summarize your thoughts a bit? Since the time, there is more time, but we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of discussion ahead. So can you make it brief? Let's say like 2 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
2 minutes. Okay. So for me, I would say the next step towards kind of making it kind of very effective is maybe one, there is this thing in economics, they say follow the money, because we've invested a lot of resources in terms of budgetary allocations, and I think the reforms of this government is to increase or uncap the GET fund. This uncapping has kind of increased more resources, and we've seen this in the allocation of food and supplies. And I think recently there was they said they've increased the amounts per student. So these resource allocations, which is evident in the uncapping of the GET fund, has sort of provided maybe, let's say, substantial resources, which previously was not the case, or maybe have improved. So maybe following those resources, because now the governance structure in our schools or maybe our system is not so effective. So you might see that, okay, there is a resource allocation, but then the resources don't get to the intended places. And also we need to look at the differentiation in terms of the districts. Some districts are more deprived, some places are more resourced, some schools are best, some schools are not so good. So trying to leverage the differences within schools and ensuring that resources are located based on like the needs of the schools, because some parents would want to maybe be in Accra or maybe be in the regional capitals because the schools are best there. But then in regions, maybe let's say Volta region, Western North, like some regions are kind of deprived in terms of accessing those resources. So we need to follow those monies and ensure that the resources are getting to their best. And then also reforming the governance, which is one of the critical areas in implementation. So I think those are the 2 points I'm kind of putting forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donatus Do. Mr. Maxwell Amofa,
Yes.
please share your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Can you please repeat the question, as the internet went a bit off here?
So, what immediate policy adjustments can ensure that the economic relief promised to parents can come to a reality?
Of course, to me, I don't think this will be different from most government policies. That's the first thing, is to combat corruption in the system. You see, the corrupt nature of our system makes everything impossible to implement, even if it's good. This is the situation. So no matter the amount of money put into it, if the invisible loopholes are not sealed, nothing is going to work. It doesn't matter how much money is being put into it. And somehow, when I talk about this, people criticize me a lot, but I still think that we need to move away from some of these systems that were imposed on us from colonial period and take very drastic measures against corruption. You know, when you go to China with almost zero level corruption, it means the measures they've taken would never allow you to be corrupt. You know, and it's the same with most of the countries outside the West that I've been to. Moscow, I've been to Belarus. They all have very similar structures. That yes, of course, there is some level of corruption, but if there is funds dedicated for education, they will make sure that it's meant for education. You know, so we must first of all tackle that. Other than that, I don't think anything else is actually going to work. Then the next thing is about discipline among ourselves as people. Now, someone is in charge of food for senior high schools, but this same food is being siphoned somewhere else. Who is monitoring that? Who is checking up on those people? You know, and I experienced this in Ghana, where some of these food were actually sold to a factory that I actually lived close by. I wouldn't disclose it for security reasons. And I was quite shocked to see this, because meant for poor kids are being sold to factories to manufacture something else. So if we do not find this kind of indiscipline among ourselves, for me, I don't think it really matters what kind of policy is being put in place, what kind of policy document is being drawn. First of all, we need to tackle issues of corruption drastically, without hesitation. You know, avoid all these ambiguous long court processes. and find very short measures to tackle these issues, and also to fight indiscipline among the people. And one way of fighting indiscipline is to, I don't know how that is going to work, is to fight crony capitalism. Um, because now everybody comes to power, and we have what we call the godfathers and all that. Everybody appoints someone that he knows into office. So the one in charge of food is appointed from the NDC or from the NPP. And what happens? Food for kids are siphoned somewhere else. Every investment into this program is siphoned somewhere else. And nobody can talk about it. Yes, and we sit all the time in the parliament, draft policy document, you are going to do this, you are going to do that. Nothing is going to work if the basis itself is not solved. So I think that if there should be any policy to actually address the shortfalls of some, first we have to go back to the basis. We have to address the basis. We have to address corruption issues. We have to address issues of indiscipline and chronic capitalism among our system. Other than that, it's just a waste of time to even measure and make this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mofa. Mr. Nathaniel Jamna, please, your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Donatus and Maxwell have made very fundamental points, which is very key to addressing the ineffectiveness and improving this policy. What I'll add is on governance. You see that the FSHS was centralized and was even being implemented directly from the presidency. That was how it was. Now, I think this government, the NDC government, has taken some steps in removing the implementation from the presidency and directly putting it in the hands of the Ghana Education Service. And then also, as Donatus mentioned, there's a dedicated fund for the project. Unlike before that, you do not have where the funds was coming from. Now there's a law that directly says this money goes into FSHS. Now that those ones have been done from the top, now as it trickles down, we need to have decentralized structures. And so like Maswell mentioned, food distribution, you find himself in maybe as an example, say a factory close by, the food is supposed to be in a school. But if these things are decentralized, this incident that he's reporting on, if it is in his region in maybe Kumasi, we know who was placed in position to ensure that food goes to the school, then that person can be held accountable. If it is in maybe Volta region, we know who was in charge there. If it was in this particular district, we know who was in charge. So that the value chain is decentralized, so that at any point in time, wherever an incident of corruption happens, you know who to hold accountable. That will be key. But if we have a system where everything we need to come to the top, somebody can even blame the president and decide that they hide away. So they put people who are immune into the front of the allegation. Like recently, we have the OSP saying that he couldn't have stopped Ken Ofori-Atta from leaving the country because he's the cousin of the president. It's just to shy away from the duty. And so once they make such a statement, realize that accountability just get vanished. But once we have a decentralized system and know that on the value chain of food distribution, if it is Jasekan district, if it is Gan West municipality, this is the particular person in charge. Gan West, we have maybe 3 schools. each school was supposed to receive maybe 50 bucks for a particular year. You didn't receive it. You were responsible. Then we hold you and then we can take it on from there. Then the second breath is the school governance. We have PTAs also having control, but we abolish these things in the schools, and we even some of these voluntary. I felt some of the monies that the PTAs were paying, they were voluntary monies that they have accepted on themselves to help to contribute to the school. And some of these things being abolished also went against the schools in terms of running itself effectively. And PTA in our school system have come together, build ICT labs, build a lot of facilities for the schools, while they are even waiting on government to come and do certain things. So those structures must also be held like in high esteem and make sure that they are implemented. Just that the government was concerned that they didn't want a situation where maybe a PTA levy will operate to prevent a child from going to school. And that is where the government wanted to draw the line. And so if that is made clear, it's a voluntary association, voluntary contribution. If they are able to pay, fine. If they are not paying, they should find a different mechanism rather than sacking students because of unpayment of PTA levy and what have you. Then the final thing I want to add is that we need to holistically embrace reforms into the policy so that we can solve our problem when we are honest to ourselves. Now, what we see is that we shift blame anytime there is a problem, but we don't take charge of the problem. And so if there's a problem, you see this one say, okay, it was MPP that caused it. This one say, oh, it's this NDC that caused it. That aside, there is a problem. Let's accept that there's a problem. And because we play the shift game, and we are blaming these people try to justify themselves in front of the problem. And so they will say, oh, this is not even a problem. We came to meet. And they are trying, but it's like you are not being honest that maybe double track is a problem. You are not being honest to just. So we need to be honest and appreciate that this is a problem. Now we work towards solving, as the government have promised that by 2026, the double track will be taken off the academic schedules. So we should be honest and appreciate the problems and then work towards solving them. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Mr. Nathaniel Jamna. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this. Now moving on, this time we'll be assessing the current government measures and interventions with regards to the FSHS. Are the current measures put in place by the government sufficient to address the challenges like overcrowding, the double track, and then the inadequate learning materials? Yeah, Mr. Donatus do.
So what I would say is that there has been some improvement since kind of the government came in the resources that we talked about, the like increasing the cap and then allowing more resources to the schools. I think that's maybe remarkable from the government. The second bit is around they kind of briefly decentralize some of the implementation in like maybe food provision and the distribution, but then I think they took it back. I don't know why. It's not the best because they promised that they will kind of decentralize the approach of distributing resources and then the food and all of those things in their campaign, and they tried to implement it when they came. But now I see that they are taking it back. I don't know what happened. Maybe the governance and the implementation at the school level kind of made the government to push back. So that's something they need to revisit. And I also think that there is still the persistent problem of like the double track, people kind of going home and coming back and having to spend limited time in school and then the instructional hours. So recently there is a government and the World Bank kind of a partnership to provide a loan or a grant that would enable the phasing out of double track. I think that's a significant achievement where we want to phase out double track, and investing in infrastructure it's one of the best ways to end double track. So I think on that score, maybe I would say the government is maybe doing well in eradicating that. And then maybe just streamlining the implementation and ensuring that we have a real-time like changing of the policy. When there is a problem, they should kind of own it, just like Nathaniel kind of spoke about. We shouldn't be so fixated on, oh, it was bad under MPP and then NDC came, and then like we should see everything, like we should be very open to like reform and real-time changes to policy, because maybe one is not working might be a very best way to be up to date with the developments and changes. The last point I'll kind of raise is the kind of disparities, which is still very persistent. The schools in urban and like well-known places still have more resources, and maybe just trying to ensure that these resources are like equitable, maybe like so that regions that are less funded, less resourced can get those resources, because there is that consistent disparity. You might look at the northern regions, the northern belts, regions in the northern belt, and then those in the western north. There is these reports from, I think, one of those development partners. The uptake of free education in the western north and some of the regions are still very low. And we don't know if there are other contextual factors that kind of affect the policy. So maybe looking at all those regional variations in the policy uptake and then their support. So like resourcing the schools might be one of the best ways to like do that. And I think they are trying, but then they need to do more.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Donatus. Mr. Maxwell Mofa, your point of view, please.
Sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Maybe he need the question again.
Yes. I don't know. My internet is crazy today. Sorry.
Yeah, Hillary, you are muted, so if you can unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
The question is, are the current measures put in place by the government sufficient in addressing the challenges of overcrowding, the double track system, and the inadequate provision of the learning materials? Yeah.
Well, if it's about government in general, then of course we will say it's not enough. But you cannot really blame any government. I mean, you cannot blame the current government. They just came to power. And neither can you blame the previous government because it's a new policy they introduced. I think we started mentioning the shortfalls of this. And of course, one of them is the fact that the kids still do not have enough logistics to ensure their studies. At some point, food was not enough. I mean, even purchasing of textbooks have become a lot of problems for a lot of them. Because of course the government cannot provide the quality textbooks that these kids need. I remember back in school we had to buy our own books, even though the government provided certain kind of books at the time for the school. So it's not something that we can blame the government that much. What they have put in, what they can put in at this point in time, is a policy that will develop with time. So with time, we hope that they are going to expand the provision of logistics and infrastructure development in most of these schools. But I think that will take time. It's not something that will be done as soon as possible. My major concern with this free SHS policy, I don't know if you're going to get there, but let me just say it now, is I was thinking that instead of kids spending so much time at home, the government could have adopted similar policies like what is happening in Germany, where these kids have very similar thing like the double track system, but instead of staying home, they use that time to intern. So they are provided specific places to actually gain certain knowledge while they are off school. So it's a form of providing an extension of their studies instead of just staying in the classroom. So my little sister in Germany, in a school, we provide such platforms for them. I think that it will rather yes, they are going to have most of the development in schools as well. For someone in senior high school could be teaching in a junior school. It's a form of development. So for me, development to actually improve and
I think we lost Maxwell.
Mr. Maxwell, I think we lost him.
Yeah, if he
Hey,
comes back,
Mr. Jamna, you can also share your points and to wait for him while he also makes his way to come back.
Oh, okay. So, at Yafo Institute, I'll urge our audience to look out for the research work that we did on FSHS. It's titled Counting the Cost, the Unintended Consequences of Ghana's Free Senior High School Policy on Household Poverty. This is a published paper, and so if you can find it in any of the research index, particularly the Google Scholar, you can find it there, and you can get access to it to read it. Now, in this work, we outline some solutions, or let me say recommendations. What makes this fantastic is that this recommendation is in two parts. We have the one that we recommended as Yafo Institute, or the researchers that did the work. And then the recommendation that we took from parents. One of the ones, the recommendation that we took from parents was that the double track system should be abolished. And if you look through the parents' recommendation, I think about 14% of parents were emphatic that the FSHS should even be cancelled. Now, these are people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of a policy that's supposed to pay their awards fees for free, but they have turned around to say they should be cancelled or double track should be cancelled. And this tell the extent of reforms that needs to be done. Because if the beneficiary come out to say this, then the policy implementer, should come to that realization that the policies have brought certain challenges and it needs to be worked on. Now, in our research, we've recommended, I think some of the policies that the government is implementing, they also fall in line with some of the recommendations that we put out there as Yafo Institute. I remember we hold a whole policy dialogue, brought a lot of stakeholders together. We brought even people from the private schools. We also brought them together. Because at the time, the conversation was, you need to expand infrastructure if you want to end double track. We recommended that the government should add private sector to the policy. This joined other calls. And today we are happy to see that almost about, I think, I've forgotten the figure, but it's either 25,000 students will go into the private sector or 6,000. I think there was a report like that the government is willing to give such amount of students to the private schools for them to educate them on the same budget that will be given to a public school. And I think that was a huge win and a significant improvement. And from the government's own assertion, this is just the beginning, and they plan to add more. They plan to add more. They plan to add more private schools to the free SHS. this I think is great. Because if you are going to expand infrastructure, some of these things, it takes cost. And the government may not be in a position to fund all of them. And so if they can have a partnership with the private schools, let them also come in to assist. That would be fantastic. Then there's also the issue about standardizing the secondary schools. I think the government tried to bring some e-blocks in the system. Now, if the cost is too much, what I see the e-blocks to do is that it's going to reduce the cost because people will not necessarily be paying for, the government will not necessarily be paying for boarding fees for people who have joined or who are educating themselves on the FSHS, but rather just a day cost. And that will also reduce the financial burden on government so that they will be able to run other systems on the policy very effectively. So these are the contributions that I think is the government has already taken step in, and we as Jeffrey Institute have also recommended some that we see them in play. So I would like to end here, and I see my colleagues joining. So Maxwell has joined so that we can add them back to the space. I think Maxwell, if you can turn on your camera, then we add you to the spotlight. Then after that, you can turn it off. Now you are on the spotlight, so you can turn it off if you want to. Great. So Maxwell, you were making a point before you left. So
yeah. So it was just about giving these kids the opportunity to actually do something else while they are home. Yes, because everything said is good. For me, I think they are all good to expand infrastructure, to provide the logistics they need and all that. But at the end of the day, what's the point? It's just to pass exams, right? And yes, acquire that knowledge. But what about the skills itself of this? That's the end goal of the whole thing. Because the purpose of education is to solve a particular problem. That is one thing that we don't really look at, you know. So I can only talk from my experience from other countries, that these kids from this upper school, or in Ghana we call it the high school, these kids actually have such short periods. So they stay home for 2 months, come go to school for 2 months, stay home for 3 months. But within those vacations, the government has provided a platform for them where they actually practice what they've studied, more like an internship. But this is part of your program. So instead of this alternating, instead of this double track, okay, you come, you stay home, you go, instead of staying home, provide that platform for them. Most of these schools need people to help them. Why don't you put them there so that they can practice whatever they are studying in school? Why don't you put them in specific sectors which need people so that they can just study what is being done over there? In this case, these kids are not just going to stay at home. They are going to find something meaningful to learn from. you know. So yes, I agree with the logistics and all that, but if we can provide this basic platform, I don't think this should be something very difficult to provide within the jurisdiction where these kids are schooling. Um, but I don't know, in our part of the world, I don't know. It looks like a bit difficult. But yes, we should provide logistics, but for the meantime, we can provide set platforms for the kids to develop. And I think that would rather help them in the long run.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amofa, for your point of view on this. Um, Moving on, with regards to the double track, staying at home and all that, how can we reduce the social risks such as teenage pregnancy, the long idle periods that emerge from students staying home for extended time, like the 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 months? Yeah, Mr. Donatus, please share your thoughts with us on that. Mr. Donatus, it seems
Oh,
like the network is terrible.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, please, I can.
So I was saying that based on best practice as kind of rolled out in other jurisdictions, one of the best ways to reduce those social risks are the like making provision for alternative learning when students are not in school. And I think recently they've started giving them tablets, and those tablets, I think we can make use of them like when they are in school, like making sure that they are still engaged in learning, although maybe the possibilities are still very hard. And then maybe another thing we looked at is in other jurisdictions, they have a lot of boys and girls clubs and recreational centers. These boys and girls clubs and recreational centers are avenues for young people to be engaged so that they don't go to engage in like other disruptive behaviors or maybe engaging in social deviance or maybe attitudes that might cause like bad things like teenage pregnancy or maybe in gang involvement. And these recreational centers, I don't know how effective it will be in Ghana, but I'm thinking if we have those things in districts or maybe constituencies, it might help to address some of these social risks. And also maybe we might want to ensure that community leaders are more engaged in some of these efforts. The resource limitations are still very present, but if we have like ways to keep students engaged, even if they are not in school, and in other best practice locations, they try to like have more recreational centers, boys and girls clubs. These are like, I don't know, in some places it's good, but then in our place, there is still a lot of resources. And I kind of appreciate government effort to have a, how do they call it? Ministry of Sports and Recreational Development, or how do they call it? The new ministry. Like creating more recreational centers so that people don't engage in like risky behaviors like maybe having to pursue happiness and maybe getting pregnant, or like just keeping young people engaged in some of these centers so that they are like productively engaged so that they don't go for like other pursuits of happiness and getting pregnant. And I think these are some of the ways we can help. And economic wise, I don't know, but these are like my preliminary thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donatus. Mr. Maxwell Mofa, please,
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts
think,
on
yeah,
this.
proceed straight away. Not an attack on what Donato said. I completely agree with him. Just to emphasize that recently the education minister said the tablets that were distributed to these kids were used to watch pornography. I don't know if you saw that in the news. Yeah, but
Really?
so that is the state of our country, you know. So um, yes, it's very difficult to understand us, but that's the state. Yeah, um, but yeah, I agree with you on the recreational center. Today, not long ago, I was in a meeting with the mayor of Frankfurt Oder and Slubice, two cities in Germany and Poland. And then one of the things that we discussed was the creation of a youth center for the kids when they are out of school. And the youth center is supposed to have a library and other uh, playing activities that these kids can engage in so that they don't find themselves in other social vices. Yeah, so I mean, in fact, it's a very good thing for kids. But usually the problem we have in Ghana still will boil down to the cost of it, that some of the kids sometimes even want to access some of these recreational facilities, but they don't even have money to pay for it. You know, how many people even have money to pay for Ratri Park in Kumasi? That's the point. So if there can be a certain form of um, incentives, maybe provided for free for these senior high school students so that they can attend such places for free, then of course, most of them will be happy to go there, sometimes just to take pictures. I think that with that, you are not even going to think about doing certain bad things, you know. Yes, but the key thing is what I said earlier, that we should provide opportunities for people to earn basic skills in various industries. I mean, it wouldn't take much to put a high school student in a junior high school to support teachers there. Neither would it take much to put kids in the district offices to assist the people there, even if they are doing nothing but sitting there and observing. I think that they will have a lot to learn, or engaged in meetings to learn how policies are being formulated and implemented. People will they will actually grasp a lot of things, and they are not going to waste so much time on things that are not necessary, leading to a lot of teenage pregnancies and all that. Because if you have nothing doing, of course, then the devil will give you work to do. And what do you do? You're going to use your tablet to watch pornography, of course. Yes, but if you have something doing, something meaningful doing, you wake up each day having something meaningful doing, then of course you're not going to be um, involved in doing all those things. So, I mean, the government must be very, very proactive in that regard, because it's very pathetic that even university students have to hold their files, roaming from office to office to look for internship. This is really pathetic in the 21st century. Like, at least we should provide certain platforms at the basic level so that people can earn basic skills. If we do that, we can highly reduce all these kind of teenage pregnancies and all that, and all these social vices. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mufa. Mr. Nathaniel Dramna, please, your point of view on this as well.
Yes, I think let me add that Donatus and Maxwell, they are joining a conversation from different part of the world. One Donatus is in US and Maxwell is in Europe. I don't know if you are in Max. I don't know if you are still in Russia or you are roaming. If you go today, we will see you in Germany. Tomorrow we see you at another end of the world. But I want to believe that the timing is helpful. It's not so late at the end of Donatus, and it's also not so late at your. It's not so early at Donatus end, and it's not so late at Maxwell's end. I want to believe so. In Ghana, we are now approaching the evening. It's approaching 6 for us. But then this social vice issue, uh, when there was one man that mentioned that FSHS will cause teenage pregnancy, and he was ridiculed all over the media spaces. Now, when we also undertook the research, we also realized that some parents were concerned about that. And if you look at the Ghana Statistical Service data, it says almost about if you take is it 10 teenagers between the age of 15 to 19 have had live birth. If you take 10 randomly, you will have them, which is quite alarming. Now, I would say that we need to build this consciousness from the parent point of view. We need to engage parents and educate parents, either through the churches, the mosques, wherever we find parents, so that they make it as like a culture. Like growing up, we have community libraries, and let me say that community libraries, we've been distributing books, donating books to a lot of community libraries, and to our surprise, most of them are funded by individuals. The government's community libraries, you don't, they are not much. Or let me say, some of them are not there. You see National Library, and some of them maybe they are building it to honor a particular big politician's name in a particular community, but you don't see a conscious effort, even with the district assembly common fund. You see that when what the government is doing is that when they disburse money to the district, they tell them what to put the money into. And if you go into those things, you don't have a quota even for some of these facilities that we are calling for, like youth centers and whatnot, libraries within the community and whatnot. So it's always up to individuals to build some of these. And where our office is situated, we are close to Pokwasi, and the Pokwasi Community Library was built by an individual who is living in US and find out that growing up, kids he couldn't get access to read, so kids to get that opportunity, and that's how come the library exists. So if we need to, this bring me to the main point I'm making, that we need to build a conscious effort as aside providing these facilities, we need to build a conscious effort among the parents so that they get to know that, okay, on a Saturday, I can drop off my child at a youth center, at a library, so that they can also do other studies aside home. Then we can also have our, like Maxwell is mentioned, that they have internship activities in the educational system in Germany. We can also have some of these things in our educational system, that if you are a student of literature, you should have attended maybe library this number of days. If you're a student of science, you should have attended this in this number of days. So that when you come on vacation, you use those vacation days to attend some of these activities and report it and submit it to the school. The school can have a duty to cross-check from those activities that you say you participated in. They can take contact and then cross-check from them whether indeed a student was there. You know, like even some of the universities even do that. You're on vacation, they let you participate in other curricular activity, extra curricular activity, and you report back. And it's even form part of your continuous assessment. So if we embed this in our educational system, it will go a long way to getting the children participating. It's like Donato, you mentioned that even when these things are provided, children don't see themselves going there. They rather visit their friends. They are going to the mall. They are going to this event, this party here and there. That's what basically fills a junior high school or a senior high school student. They are looking for the SHS event to attend, the fan fairs and whatnot. But these things, we can only build them consciously in them. And we can start with the parents, and also we can also do that with the school curricular activity to add some academic assessment or marks for that. So that when students are on vacation even, they can organize themselves and visit a library. Whatever activity that they do, they report it. It fetch them some mark. And we will have a consciousness towards some of these things. Other than that, like Marcel concluded, I said that the devil find work for the idle hands. And certainly, if you don't give yourself work, the devil will give you a work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nathaniel Damna. Please, our dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, watching live on Facebook and YouTube, please, you'll be asking questions. You'll be asking the speakers some questions at the end of the dialogue. So please, as you listen, put your questions, your doubts aside. When we are done with the dialogue, you'll be given the opportunity to ask your various questions. Thank you very much. Moving on, let's look at the private sector engagement. So to what extent has the private sector been engaged to support the infrastructure upgrades, and what more can be done in terms of this engagement? Mr. Donatus, let's hear from you. Thank you.
So in terms of private and business partners, partnership to kind of improve or upgrade infrastructure, I learned there is a new initiative to incorporate more private secondary school participation. Those pilots are still ongoing. They didn't mention the schools because they said it's still under review and we're kind of piloting it. But maybe I'm thinking this will be like novel in incorporating more private sector participation in like providing the education. But then on the front of like infrastructure provision, I still think, okay, since we banned PTA and now we have returned them, maybe we'll be seeing them more like bringing in some of the private sectors. And you will also notice that private sector participates more in schools that have more strong alumni network, and schools that have very strong old alumni or maybe alumni, they kind of have more ability, more resources to be able to bring in private sector to invest in their infrastructure and also their schools. So maybe if we want to see some of these developments, we need to engage more. Recently, there are still efforts, but then I don't see them as like broad sector wide private sector participation. Like it's just some specific schools and also some specific jurisdictions, and it is heavily skewed towards those schools in the urban areas and also those schools that are in like regional capitals and also those that kind of have some popular uh, alumni network. So maybe these are like still very preliminary. And also the business leaders, I think some schools are able to bring in those like private sector, like business leaders, like maybe let's say Despite kind of example. Recently, there is the MP for, is it Edem Agbana or whatever? He has a initiative and he's bringing someone from the US to help partner him build a community center and a library, which has like components of youth center, library attached to the community. These are like private sector investments in promoting educational attainment of young people, but then like it's not like coordinated. So maybe if you want to coordinate some of these partnerships, it might be more useful. And also one last part is to incentivize some of this participation. So maybe if government can give these business people some incentive so that they can invest more of those incentives in like schools building, like infrastructure development, and also other kind of support services, so that like schools are more resourced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donatus. Mr. Maxwell Amofa, please, your point of view on this as well.
Yeah, of course, I agree with Donatus. But you see, a couple of years ago, the government came up with very good initiative to promote tourism. We had the year of return. We had a whole lot of people trooping in from the United States and other places to Ghana. And of course, we saw some investment in the field of education. I mean, we've seen Jaru putting up some school complex. We've seen other people putting up some buildings. Yeah, which of course are all good initiatives.
Blanket said he was due by the government.
Yes, which are all good initiatives, and I actually support that. But of course, I have a problem with how citizenship were just dashed out to people. But of course, but
Yeah.
if we can make certain conditions that if you're going to invest in this sector, then we are then going to help you facilitate that citizenship. So it's not just going to be simply by descent, that simply by the fact that you claim to be an African descent. So, I mean, we are giving you citizenship, which to me is weird. But rather investing in this sector, which we need the most at the moment. So invest in education, invest this amount of money in the educational sector, but by putting up infrastructure building that amount this particular amount of money. I think that we will encourage huge investment into this sector to improve infrastructure development. And a typical case is one part of central region where the chiefs are allegedly giving lands to people from diaspora for free, simply because they want them to invest. But people are taking lands and doing nothing over there. You know, you're just taking the lands, taking citizenship, and that's it. But let's make these conditions that, you know what, we are willing to invest money. This is actually a common practice among all countries, even in the United States, where Donatus is, where President Donald Trump has his own gold. I don't know what that is. Very good coin or good currency, where you have to buy to get a citizenship of the United States. So that is one way the country can actually partner with the private sector to improve the infrastructural development. Because trust me, they need us just as we need them. It's not like we need them like it has been pictured. There's a system created that has made it appear as if, we need them. No, we need them just like they need us. So we can partner with all those people from the diaspora to invest in infrastructure development. Again, is also even the private sector within the country itself. There are a lot of companies operating in the country. These days, foreign companies are establishing their companies inside the country. We've seen China malls everywhere in the country. What exactly is the impact? What impact are they making in the countries? The mining corporations, which have been operating there for several years, Newmont, Goldfield, what exactly is their contribution aside building TNA Stadium in Takwa? Let's engage them. Invest in this sector, invest in building this amount of schools, provide this amount of logistics in this country, in this kind of communities to ensure that kids are able to have the necessary facilities within those regions. And then you continue to operate as part of your corporate social responsibility. So I think that is how we should engage them. We shouldn't simply be handing over things out for free as if without them the country is never going to develop. So I think that if we can engage private sector in that manner, we can actually help improve the educational sector.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mufa. Mr. Nathaniel Jamna.
Yeah, so I'll start off from where Maxwell ended. Corporate social responsibility. I think when it comes to private sector partnership with the government, our private sector, so to say, in Ghana, maybe I may be wrong, but then I feel they misunderstand private sector partnership with the government. They see corporate social responsibility as an avenue to catch favor with the government. And so you will be surprised that if you go to the books of a lot of private companies, in the recent scandal with the petroleum companies, and the amount of money they were dishing out to the government for them to support an election. And clearly, it's like you don't see the linkage. So instead of them to maybe undertake social projects, invest in education, and do some of these positive acts, I won't say some private sector entities do that, but some of them also think that this is an avenue for them to, so to say, catch favor with the government. So they try to invest in political campaigns rather than doing something that will really benefit various sectors. Some will not even they will not even sponsor social causes that even goes a long way to even benefit their business. But you find them quickly donating to political parties, quickly donating to politically exposed persons, so that we say the crony capitalism coming, then so that when the government wins, they give them the contract and whatnot. That is not the goal, and that shouldn't be the goal. When we come to private sector investment and partnership, I think with education, the piloting has to do with 25,000 students being given to private schools to start the piloting. That is a positive step. They are private. In fact, when it comes to education alone, the government cannot do it on its own. From the basic school up to the university. In fact, the basic school, you have more private schools than even the public schools. And so we have individuals that have championed education, quality education, from the basic school up to the secondary school level. Last time, a certain man was making an interview, and it was like, gone were the days private schools like John Tay and the rest. They would like these are DB schools, but now we don't even see that again, because I said I know the way they was making emphasis. I know in my days when we say DB school, that is John Tay, and that is a private school, and the sort of pride the person was using to speak, you could tell that some of these private schools have come to contribute to the success of our society. But then when it comes to policy implementation, we tend to set them aside. FSHS was implemented largely. We ignored these private schools, these individuals who have championed education. We ignored them. And then when the problem started coming, then we look at them as an afterthought. We shouldn't also, the government should also not see private sector as like a second option. You should put them on the table right from the word go. Get their involvement in and leverage with them where they can help. Let them assist. and let that assistance should come at their own terms. And also, they should also try to meet the government in some way. But I don't subscribe to private sector trying to find favor in the government using that and then doing all manner of donations. That doesn't go well to any social cause. Okay, so that is where I want us to draw the lines a bit so that people should do good, advance social causes, build libraries and whatnot. And some of these things will go a long way to help us. And then when it comes to also entertainment, that's also another thing that the private sector does. But over there, they're able to collaborate very well. You see a lot of them, they are like no qualms at all. They don't have difficulty over there at all. But when it comes to spreading it to the other sectors like education, something like this thing that comes to you, who even see my brand if I'm
Return on
investing
investment, yeah.
who see my brand when I'm investing in a school somewhere that maybe like so that's kind of the challenge. But you instance there are other um entities that do like painting. You see this nodal company, they will paint the whole school and you see their colors on the walls and whatnot. But these are positive things that beautify some of the environment. So we need them. But the government should not see the private sector as a second option. They should call them to the table right from the word go. They shouldn't go and implement stuff. And when it's getting deteriorated, then say, okay, how can the private sector help us in this? But I think that that approach will also not be helpful. We should get them right from the word go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nat. So we are moving into another dimension within the free SHS. Let's look at the computerized school placement system. So has during the previous dialogue series, there have been some reforms concerning the CSSPS. Yes, how to improve it, improve transparency. Can we say that those reforms proposed have been adopted in the placement system in terms of transparency and efficiency? Yeah, Mr. Donatus.
And I would say that just to let me diverge a little bit to add to what Nathaniel was saying around the CSR. I'm thinking that CSR actually need to be more quantified in recent times because everybody will just say they are doing CSR, but we are not able to quantify the resources and trying to put some value on it. Okay, how much are you investing? What is the criteria? Like, should we put some like threshold on, okay, this is how much you need to invest so that like we don't have a blanket statement for CSR because a lot of companies are not doing much, but then they just say, okay, they are doing CSR. So that's just for the CSR. And I think the computer system has been, I don't know, shambolic this year. It was not the best. There was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of agony. Parents need to go to the centers. Some people were sleeping at the centers. That's not like an improvement from what we discussed the last time. And I think they need to do better. I don't know whether there was a system overload based on like the recent accountability measures from the new government and the impact that had on the placement, because I learned they wanted to streamline it and also remove like a lot of connection, but then the outcome was not so clean. So we might need to like revamp the school placements in terms of like where are we placing the people and then who gets placed. Previously there was a lot of connection, but then this time around they said they were limiting the connection and like whom you know, but I don't know if they have been able to address it. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the process was so like uncoordinated and parents had to suffer a lot. And I think parents like they really suffered. Some of them maybe I don't know if they got their right places of school, but then now that the placements are over, we need to really look at like where they are placed, who gets placed, and then the criteria they are used for placing. And another kind of addition I would like to add is we should incorporate some school choice in the placement options, because now that we have more private schools, there should be opportunities for parents and pupils to choose that, okay, they want to go to private school, they want to go to a TVET school. And this should not be like computerized, like, oh, we are randomly placing people there. Like we should have a coordinated effort where parents who like maybe might be interested in TVET are motivated to choose TVET schools. And then those who want to go to like more renowned or maybe like in the private schools in the placements, they should place them in those private schools so that we don't have like blankets, like everybody just chooses a school and then the computer places them in those places. We should enhance more autonomy in these choices and like the options so that people can choose various options within the school placement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donatus. Mr. Amofa.
Yeah, thank you very much. This computerized system is something always had a problem with because you never know who is even behind the system and who is controlling what. Um, and considering our experiences in Africa, seems not to be a very good idea. Yeah. Um, but yes, like Donato said, I think that we need, for me, I think we need a reform in that particular sector in transitioning from junior high school to senior high school. Um, because someone moving from junior high school usually may have particular set of skills, but we categorize everybody as one and just place them into certain schools that sometimes do not even have um, what it needs to develop those particular skills. Now, sorry, sorry. In other jurisdictions, one thing I realized is when kids are graduating to that level of high school, what they do is they sample them and try to understand what every child's potential is. So there are kids that are very smart in certain kind of field. So those are kids that are trained to go through certain level of high school so that they can go to the university to do certain courses. While certain kids have this ability to connect certain things with their heads. So these kids are actually sampled to be trained to go to technical schools to be doing technical things. So right from that level, like you are really sampled into certain categories. You are not all put together, clams together in certain schools that sometimes do not even meet your abilities. So these kids get there and there's a huge problem. It's like they're lost. They don't know what you're doing, because maybe his field is technical things, but he's been put into maybe Prempeh College where nothing like technical is going on there. Maybe to read science or general arts or worst case visual arts. So I think that like Donatus was saying, people with special interest, they should be given that chance to choose specific schools. If we cannot specifically select them, then let's give them the chance to choose specific schools to go to. And the teachers at the junior high school should be trained also to guide these students, not simply pushing all students to read science and general arts. They should be trained to guide students to choose things based on the abilities of these kids that they've been with for a long time. Um, because not everybody is from a very literate family that they can really guide their children. Some people like myself are from places that you will need your teachers to guide you because your parents can't guide you. So the teachers at that level should be trained to help these students, position them in specific sectors, and the government should allow them to choose specific schools that meet their abilities instead of using the computerized system to just place kids anywhere because of their grades. To be honest, it's not something that I I, I, I really second. It's not something I've ever supported actually. Um, so yeah, that would be my take on that.
Mr. Jamna, please
Okay,
let's hear from you.
yeah, thank you very much, Hilary. I think from what have been said by Donatus and Maxwell, I want to add some maybe contributing factors to the computerized placement system that are caused maybe by the parents. Okay, I know anytime in the conversation we look at the government side, they create a part, I'll come there, but let's look at the parent side too. Now, with the current system, when I was going to school, and the students are allowed to make choices. So you select the school you want to go to. Now, if you are making 5 choices, you have the schools are in various categories. We have the best schools in the category A down to maybe the D's. So in your 5 choices, you're supposed to pick category A, B, C in that manner. But when you meet the students and you ask them which school they want to go, all of them seem to remember their first choice or maybe the first and second. Then they forget that they added third, fourth, fifth. So if the results comes out and it turns out maybe to be bad and the person is placed in maybe his 4th choice, you can see the person say, oh, I didn't choose this school. Or maybe sometimes they have forgotten about what they chose. That's one. Number 2, some of them also choose a particular school and then they select that they will go for day. So maybe you are living in Eastern region. Maybe say you are in Cape Coast. You are seeking to come to a school in Kumasi. And you are selecting days to school. You want to be a day student, so that they can accept you. So maybe you want to go to Okoko or maybe Prempeh, and you are selected that you want to be a day student. You are coming all the way from Accra, just so that they select you as a day student. And once you are selected as a day student, you have gotten entry. Now you want to change. They say that, oh, they tell that, oh, I'm in Accra. Why did they place me in Kumasi and they made me day? It's not possible for me to be there. But these are some of the human problems that we also add to the computer placement system. Now, let's come to the government side. With every system that we have in Ghana, anybody who wants to improve it, you are coming to face a cabal that are profiting from the rot, and you that is bringing the improvement. And so anytime you are trying to bring improvement, you say that the system will even shut down totally. It will, so that it will help anybody. So you have to kowtow to the cabals, because somebody is profiting from this school system. And there have been investigative reports that say people pay as much as 15,000 to get the award to a secondary school. That whole amount can pay for someone's master's. And you are paying just for your son to get to a particular secondary school. So these are some of the issues. Then let me touch on the point raised by Maxwell. He says the career guidance bit that we sample people. See, in our jurisdiction here, you don't, in fact, career guidance and clinic is something you only hear of them maybe in the university level. You go to school, you reach university, that's why somebody's come to talk to you about career guidance. At that time, you've chosen your course, you don't even know where you are going. You understand? But these are initiatives that must start from the junior high school level, so that we have career guidance, so that you know where we drive you to where you are going. Also, I think somebody can look at your face and you look like a general science student. Then so you go and do general science. These are the level of assessment, and the teachers at the basic school or at the junior high, they are the people who make the fundamental choice. They say you go and read science, you are good at math. So, and it's crazy. There's no metric. They are also individual. They may have their preferences among the students, and they are also subject bias. If they are teaching a particular subject and they realize that, oh, this student is good in my subject, they recommend to you that go and do this particular subject, forgetting that holistically the other subject, maybe the student is not good there. So if you push her to a particular field, those subjects may worry the person there. So if you say you are good at interscience, maybe your science, your mathematics is bad, and that has forced you to go and read science. You go and meet mathematics there, and it will make the whole thing crumple. Then the final bit with the parents is, we have a perception that once you are going to a TV school, your son is a bad son or is not good at academics. That's the perception here. So the moment, oh, where is your son going to school? You know, the parents, or let me say, with our generation, our parents, the millennials' parents, most of them didn't get the benefit of going to school. Most of the millennials have gone to school. So the children of the millennials, to a large extent, they will know what they are doing when it comes to education. But the millennials' parents, you could tell that in fact, those people, they take pride in the fact that their son is in school. They say, oh, my son, oh, he's in Legon, he's going to school. And then they are happy. That's all. Whatever you are doing at Legon, they don't care. You are in school, they are happy. Oh, my son is at Prepper College. My son is at this school. Like my son is at Infante Pimp. That's all. Then they are bragging with it. Then they will be giving testimony. That's it. So we need to change that perception. So far as the son is doing maybe TVET, something related to TVET or technical school, we think the child is vocation or technical. We think that the child is dumb. That's why the child is in the technical school. And I think we need to demystify this perception so that people will tend to appreciate that if students are going to do auto mechanic in a technical school, that is not a wrong choice, but that's also a level of empowerment, and that is also great. And this perception is so huge to the point that even free SHS was implemented without adding the TVET people. And that's sad. They thought education, they are not part. But meanwhile, it's also a secondary school level of education. And so that's to tell you the extent, if a whole government can sideline them and think that we can start free SHS and we are going to. In fact, in a proper country, they even see the kind of students who are going to do art courses. Because if to do art, you should be more of a different level that you can do it to the latter before you can start getting the benefit of it. Because if you just finish art and you are finishing at the first degree, you may not really see the benefit of it. So these are some of the things we need to help our parents to get it, and then also help the government, the corruption side and the cabals and whatnot to also improve their system over there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nat, for this great insight. For the sake of time, we are going to allow questions. Our dear audience, here on Zoom, on Facebook and YouTube, please, you can come with your question. You can drop it in the chat box. You can also unmute yourself and then talk to us. Any question at this point? Please, our audience, we are waiting for your questions. If you have doubts, if you have questions concerning some of the insights given by our speakers, feel free to share with us.
I think there's a hand.
Okay, I think someone dropped something in there. Yeah, please go ahead. Unmute yourself and then, yeah, speak.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Simon Agoma, and I'm speaking from China. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank you and thank our guests very much for the insight they've given to us on the free HSS that is being implemented in Ghana since 2007 up to 2005. And the current government has also taken the initiative to ensure that they make some changes. In fact, I am also a researcher, and when I saw the post, I was interested because I also look at some few items on that some time ago. And my case is not a question. I just want to make some little contribution. So first of all, just as we can see that pre-HSS enrollment before the policy in 2026, there were about 309,000 students HSS students being enrolled, and then latest by 2023-2025, the number rises to 1.2 million annually, and that is obviously about 300% increase, as statistics is found in the Ministry of Education website. So what I want to see is that, first of all, we need to look at what were the causes of the downfall or the decline of this HSS policy. I think that we first need to look at the causes, and that is one. We have physical strain. So the key issues on that one, you could see that Ghana spent about 25 billion. That is chronic arrears, 25 billion. And then the results of this one will result to a supply unpaid, budget crowded, and it, at the end of the day, will definitely pose a great impact on the implementation of the HSS. Secondly, we also have infrastructure gap. Before implementation, they needed to assess the infrastructure Ghana is currently having and make sure they start at a point to increase the infrastructure before they get to the implementation. We also have the decline in quality, where we see that there is a whole lot of poor working performance, rise of dropouts, and the rest, because the policy before implementation wasn't planned well. Now, let's look at the way forward. What can we do? Then we can now think of the funding, where we can say that government should think of implementing a policy. Let's see, passing an act that will run from 2026 to 2030, where we'll have something like a ring fence, where we can say that there should be 1% to 3%, 1 to 3% GDP, that is VAT plus royalty. And when this one goes yearly, then by the end of 2035, we should assume that Ghana can accumulate an amount not less than 40 billion per year, and at the end will result to zero arrears. I am saying this because I have to compare some data with that of China's policy. China actually implemented several policies that has led to their FSHS sustainability and then a zero arrears. For example, Ghana can learn from China. Let's see, the first pillar China did was funding locked to GDP growth. So they enacted a policy, Educational Fence Act. And then, for example, Ghana can enact a Fence Act by 2027, and then the legal ring fence that would guide them, let's say 1% to GDP by 2027, and then 2% by 2032, 3% by 2035. They are dedicated tax. And this tax can be tied to, let's say, 1% VAT deduction or 50% mineral royalty. Yes, I'm summarizing.
Please, can you make it brief for us? Yeah, for the sake of time.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm saying,
Okay.
can you make it brief for us for the sake of time?
Just give me 1 minute to summarize. So I'm saying that Ghana can look at the funding lock to GDP. They can look at the dedicated revenue stream. Then they can expand their free education gradually, not in a rush. Then they can also consider private sector and that's co-funding, just as one of our colleagues, the speakers mentioned. Then they can also link education to export industry. So because of time, let me just say one sentence on the computer placement. I think that China too has a policy where they tie every school, every senior high school to a province. The province in which you come from, you must go to a senior high school there. And resources are being shared equally. It doesn't matter whether you're in a rural school or you are in the urban school. Resources are shared equally. And then opportunities are given equally. After completion, then infrastructure base, further studies, you are all given equal opportunity. So once your parents stay in a particular province and you school there, then you should be know, and that you should have it in your mind that at the end of the day, you must go to a particular secondary school just within your province. Based on that, every province head is to ensure that his or her school has the needed resources from the central government. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think time will not allow me, and maybe as time goes on, I can put out my submission and submit it to you, and then you can have a look at it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. We are really appreciate your point of view and your insight. Please, any other question from the audience? Any contribution, any question? Our speakers are still here. If you have any doubts, if you have any contribution to give, any other, please, you have the chance now to do so. You can equally drop your questions in the chat box, and I will be checking. When I see your question, I'll read it out for the speakers. That is if you are not okay or you do not want to speak. I'm guessing all of us are okay, since there is no sign of questions, no contribution, so that we can move on.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Okay, so for the sake of time, since there are no questions and contributions, I think we can move on. So one last question to you, speakers. In the light of all this, the current financing model in Ghana, is the free SHS still sustainable in the long term, given our economic realities? Yeah, that will be our last question. And for each speaker, I'll give you 2 minutes each to express. Mr. Donatus, please, you can share your thoughts with us on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that because of the evidence, what we have seen, the outcomes, they have been positive for the most part in getting like the educational attainment, just like the one of the respondents or one of our participants mentioned. The data indicates that like we've had more enrollment because now people don't have to face the cost barrier and also the access that have been improved. So like in light of those evidence, we might want to like improve on the policy, and I think the current government's approach to maybe uncap the Get Fund, and also because Get Fund is revolving every year, people kind of are taxed to fund it. So if we kind of commit to like making the Get Fund better, like getting the taxes in, and also ensuring that the fund is always revolving, I think on that level, the policy is kind of sustainable because like it has a dedicated fund. We can even maybe add extra resources from some of those oil revenues, because some of the heritage fund that we talked about some time ago are all there, just that they have used them to collect loans. But the Get Fund have not been used to collect loans, so we can be hopeful that the policy is kind of durable because we have a dedicated source of funding now. And also because we want to bring in more private sector, if we bring in more private sector participation, it's an avenue to increase more participation from what's the name, like the public, which is like not government dependent. So I think on that note, I think it's like sustainable. Like,
Thank you very much. Mr. Amofa, please, your thoughts. Please, 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, like Donato said, free SHS, just when it started, most of the funds were, I believe, were coming from the oil revenue before it was switched to Get Fund and all that. And yes, it's because even the oil, we're not getting enough money from there, which was not sustainable at the time, um, because we are not mining our own oil. They are mined by multinational companies, and we only get a peanut out of it, out of which people get their 5%, 10% cut, even out of the little we still get. Um, so, I mean, from the Get Fund, like Donato said, that one looks a bit more sustainable because it's taxes that people are paying from it. But I think that if we can really sustain some of these things, like I always say, it has to do with the basis. We have so much natural resources. There should be a way for which we can take control over such resources. Then we can fund some of these projects with our revenue from our resources. But if we continuously give out our resources away like that in the name of we don't have the skills, so resources are being mined by people and you only get 20% out of it as royalties.
5%.
Imagine, I mean, you can basically do nothing with this money, and we are happy with it. And it's
And they
like,
said it's the law. Like,
and we are so happy with it. Like, I don't understand us. And we are so
imagine.
comfortable. And it's the same across most African countries. And you look at it and you be like, what is wrong with us?
We are bewitched. I don't know.
So we need to, I mean, put in certain measures to get control over these resources and then use such money to fund some of these things. Education is the basis of every country. And if we cannot fund it from our God given resources, then I don't know what else we can use to fund it. At the moment, Get Fund looks sustainable, but till when are you going to tax the people? Remember, if you continuously taxing them, one day if they cannot afford their basic necessities, they are going to revolt. This is human nature. And if you look at history, it's like that throughout. If you are paying taxes and you are not getting the benefit out of it, and you are continuously paying taxes, one day people are going to get fed up. So we have to make use of our resources, get hold of our resources, and use that money from the resources to actually fund our education.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jamana,
Yeah,
2 minutes.
great. Thank you very much. With our funding sustainability, our 2026 budget has made some proclamations. And the good thing is the Get Fund bill that is going to fund FSHS. So now we know that this funding source is going to fund that. And then there's also allocation of almost about 33 billion Ghana cedis to building of e-blocks. And in general, what I found problematic about this is they have almost about 4.2 billion dedicated for the free SHS and free TVET program. So they don't see the TVET as a secondary education. So they've separated it from free SHS. It's also, I think the free SHS will be a bigger umbrella to cover all secondary cycle learning, including vocation vocation and then technical training. But these are the allocations that have been made. I think with what has been said about the Get Fund, is looking at in the short term, I'll say it's sustainable. However, from the beginning of this conversation, Marshall has mentioned that we need to tackle corruption. It doesn't matter how much amount of money you take from we, the people. If you take it from us and you are still going to leak it through the seepages and the leakages in the value chain, we always come back to the taxpayer demanding more. And that's how it has been the tradition. And so a government can start something. A government can start maybe a business. The business collapse. And say, okay, so how can we sustain the business? And okay, let's go and take more money from the tax and come and put it in the business. I'm like, now the first one you took from the taxpayer, what have you done with it? And who is going to be held accountable? Nobody is held accountable for wasting taxpayers' money. And so we need to also tackle that. As we are raising money for the free education program, we have to also tackle corruption and accountability bits. So that if people waste it, we should hold them accountable and deal with them so that it will prevent others from also behaving in if they have any malfeasance in their closet, they shelve it away. I think if you're able to do these two things very well, it should fetch us a lot of money. Then
I wanted to add that.
Okay. You say what do you want to say?
Now, I wanted to say that YAFO can do research on following the money, maybe where like the money goes in terms of like the resource distribution to know, like just like you saw the unintended consequences, maybe we'll see the like
Yeah,
where the money goes.
yeah, I think that's a very great initiative that we can add it to our programs. Then the other bit I wanted to add is our natural resources, as has been pointed out. We should also use them to our benefit. In recent time, we had Ghana Gas funding a lot of astro theft across the country. Meanwhile, we have a football federation that's supposed to do that. And the football federation were taking money from FIFA to build pitches, and that pitches were built by Ghana Gas. And so I'm like, so where did the FIFA money go? And why is Ghana Gas good? And it's like it has become a developmental project. Politicians are priding themselves that, oh, we built this astroturf here. I'm like, it's not your job to build it in the first place. The FA was there to do that. So why do you take money? And we and in our context, when you bring some of this, it's like you are weird. You are seen with the VFS. Oh, but the big man has done it. So you just have to praise the person. But so with some of this thing, we need to build use our natural resources to our benefit. And I, for one, support if we can do like we did when we were in HIPIC. Any building that was built, they write HIPIC benefit. We should be doing some of these things. If it was built by our petrol money, we should put it there, petroleum funded, like so that we know we see the visibility of our natural resources helping us. Because for the average guy, they think that doesn't benefit us. And even when you go to even some of these resource centers, the towns, oh Charlie, there's nothing to write home about from this resource center. So we need to also take charge of it very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nat. On this note, we are coming to the end of this dialogue. We've spent so much time talking about some of the problems and accessing terms of government and other stuff. Thank you very much, our speakers, for dedicating your time to educate us and open our minds to a lot of things. Yeah. Personally, I've got to hear certain things for the very first time. I'm also a product of free SHS and I can relate to a lot of challenges. A lot of them. Yeah. They are real. And I hope these reforms will be taken into consideration and improved so that those who are coming can enjoy a good, better free SHS. Yeah. Thank you very much. To our cherished viewers, Facebook, YouTube, our distinguished audience here on Zoom, thank you very much for making time to join us on this dialogue. Adia Simon, thank you for sharing your insights as well. I mean, that's a very, very great observation, and I must commend you on that. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We have come to the end of this dialogue. I hope we'll have similar dialogue on this sometime next time. Yeah. And then we'll assess these same reforms that we've suggested to the government to see whether there has been an improvement. Yes, it's very important so that we can all have a better Ghana to live in and have a good educational sector and have a bright future for our dear young ones. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think maybe if you have last words, anybody has last words to add up. If
Any
not,
last words from our speakers, please?
I was just happy that I met my boss, Maxwell. It's been long we had an interaction since we last met at Unity Hall. Like he promised me a position. So he's seen him for that. It's good that I've seen him. But yeah, this was very good. I like the free SHS conversation, and I see that YAFO is leading the charge in bringing insightful research and different components of the policy. And I hope that it continues that way so that we can improve the policy.
Yeah, and thank you very much, everybody, and of course, my good friend Donatus. Not long ago, we used to fight on Facebook on the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, another nonsense war in Europe. Sorry for my language, but yeah, it's one of the wars that makes no sense.
Tell you.
Anyway, thank you very much for this platform. I think it was very educative, and I also learned a lot because recently I've been doing things more about international stuff, international humanitarian and conflict things, and particularly in Europe. So my mind has not really been on certain things in Africa. Sometimes when I look at some of the things happening in Ghana, I get headache. So I don't even follow it at all because
You're not alone.
yeah, sometimes it's nasty. Like some of the things that happen over there, that happened over there. Yeah, so having such platforms is very good. Like hearing from well-renowned people, of course, familiar faces, and the people I know to be knowledgeable in this kind of sector. So yeah, it's a privilege for me, and I'm very honored to be here. And I hope everyone learned a lot as well. So thank you so much.
Great. I think I'll have the last words. I think it has been a fantastic conversation, and I'm glad that we are able to bring these two brains to join us on this particular discussion. And like I mentioned earlier, both of them are in different. One is at the west, one is at the east, and different time zones. And if you're able to bring them together, it's very helpful. So, and I feel maybe moving on, we'll be having conversations and we'll bringing them more, particularly on resources, because when we got to finance, and I think all of them have like, it's like they have broken hearts from how our resources are being managed. So maybe they have a different level of insight that they may want to throw at us. Maybe when we want to talk about Ghana's resource management and the new bauxite deal that is a lithium deal that was signed that a whole lot. Sorry, it's not easy being in Ghana and trying to do policy. It's not easy at all. So I'll thank you all for your time, and we'll also continue to do our best as Yafo Institute and make sure that we bring the policy education bit to our populace, because I believe for one that we need informed citizens to be able to make informed decisions. And so some of these conversations are helpful to promoting that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naz. I think Simon, your hand was up. You want to give some last words?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that we have learned a lot from our resource persons, and it will be prudent that they share their contacts and the Yafo Institute too, so that we, the newcomers, can link up, and then we can share more ideas when it comes to Ghana and the ideas that we'll put together to ensure that we get sustainable development and betterment of our country.
Okay. For me, I can drop my email in the chat, and Hillary, you can put our website information out there as I do that.
Yes. You can access Yafo through www.yafoweb.org. I would put that in the chat right away. You can get most of our insightful articles from there. And the research paper as well. Yes, you can get it from there. You can also follow us on Facebook. Yeah, Facebook as well. So you can be getting updates every time. Yeah. Thank you. Please, our audience, anyone would like to give a remark concerning today's discussion? Yeah. What do you think? How was the conversation? How did it resonate with you? Yeah. Were your expectations met? Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think we've given a lot of contact details. I've even had our WhatsApp channel in the chat box, and then we've done almost about we have done more than 2 hours. That's great. So let us be running so that we leave our speakers. They are in where we record. They don't play with hours at their end. So
Yeah.
let's wrap it up and then let them go. Because this, especially the man and the east must sleep.
Oh, what's the time now?
It's 6 o'clock at the hour end. Max, what's your time?
Well, at the moment I'm in Germany, In fact, I'm not too far from Poland, just 10 minutes from Poland, and it's 1918, like 718.
Okay. Just 1 hour ahead of us. That's fine. Okay. So
Yeah.
then, Hilary,
Thank you
to know
very
you
much. Thank you very much, everyone. So we've come to the end of the dialogue, and we are glad to have you all here. So we are looking forward to have you on our next dialogue on current issues and policies. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.